Good morning from York Racecourse. I'm Darren Baldwin and today I'm sitting in the other chair. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a very good friend of mine, which many of you may well know, Paul Robinson, ex-Tottenham, Blackburn, Leeds and England footballer. And today we're going to speak all about football and groundsmanship and the relationship between both. Paul, welcome to York Racecourse. Not too far for you to travel today, but a little bit further for me. But now it's nice to look out over the Knavesmire. Not our first time here.
It's a bit empty though than when we're normally here, isn't it?
And normally we're not sitting
and
this
we're not
close.
drinking water when we're normally here either, are we?
That's very true. So cheers to that. Paul, I've known you some 19, 20 years. And I will always remember a day at White Hart Lane, beginning of August. I think it was your first season, 2004. And we had pre-season training in the stadium. And you came out.
I don't know what he's going to say.
Oh, no.
He's got a lot on me. I wonder what's coming out here.
And you came out and beginning of the season, pre-season, and for a groundsman, that's a nightmare. No groundsman wants pre-season training in the stadium. And from a groundsman's perspective, we're always, the goalkeepers are the ones we jump on. And I'll never forget coming over to see you booting up in the technical area. And straight away I'm like, how do I approach this guy? Big reputation coming in. But first minute, you were brilliant. You were very respectful. And words that I don't hear very often was, I ain't going to go in the goal area, mate. And I'll never forget that. So where did your first respect, I'm going to say, to pitches come in?
I don't know about pitches. I think it's just a respect for people and understanding people's jobs. And understanding that how precious groundsmen are about the pitches, and especially goal mouths. But no, I mean, as a goalkeeper, you do like to get your surroundings, understand your 6-yard box, but you do it every day of the week. So if you're at the show pitch, if you like, at the stadium, there's an element of wanting to train in there and a little bit of, needing to do certain things like crossing, maybe through balls, picking up the flight of the ball in the stadium. But actually your hard work, your hard graft, and you don't need to do that in the goal. You do it every day of the week. And if you don't know where your 6-yard box is at that point, then you're in trouble. But no, it was just a mutual respect for and an understanding that you had a job to do. And the first day of the season was your biggest day of the year. Obviously, your pitch, you want it to look well, don't you? You spent 6 weeks digging it up and it's all grown back and you want it to look best.
Yeah, it is. And you have you're probably not in the majority when you have those views. I mean, I look back over my career and some goalkeepers are very easy to get on with. Goalkeeping coaches maybe sometimes dictate. Did you ever have a time at any of your clubs where goalkeeping coaches would insist that don't worry about the pitch, you're going to go and do this or you're going to go and do that? Or did you, with a goalkeeping coach, work as a team as to what you could or couldn't do?
Well, like you say, I was always approached when you work with your coach as a team and you make a decision as to what you want to do. Listen, I've seen it myself. I've been in England squads, I've been in other squads with goalkeepers who have no regard for anybody, want to go in the goalmouth, and that's their domain. They want to work in there and they want to do their work in there, whether it's before the game, in pre-season or training sessions or whatever. But the goalkeeping coach is pretty much led by the goalkeeper. I mean, we're a strange bunch. We're a weird breed. As you know, we're a bit odd. And whatever keeps us happy, the goalkeeping coach has got a bit of a babysitting job to do as well. And, you've got to, basically like with kids, pick your fights, pick your arguments. If you say to a goalkeeping coach, I want to work over there, goalkeeping coach, you go, okay, fine, fair enough. But you do his session, but you do it where you want to do it type thing. So the goalkeeper does have a big input in that, yeah. Sure.
I think probably in players' minds and in players' game mode is watering of the pitch and irrigation. Now, I've had many a conversation with many players. Some want it watered, some don't want it watered. Some want it to be fast, some want it to be slow. Did you ever have?
Everyone, mate, can you?
Well, you can't, and you're probably answering some of this for you. You've probably got 11 different views, or certainly 4 different views. a striker might want one thing. But from a goalkeeper's perspective, how did you ever find, or your relationship with a groundsman on wanting the pitch watered? Was you one that wanted the pitch watered?
Yeah, I just wanted consistency. That's the thing as a player you want, is consistency. There's no point in chucking a load of water on it 10 minutes before kick-off on a day like today. And it's a beautiful day, so you chuck a load of water on it 10 minutes before kick-off, 20 minutes into the game, you're going to get patches that are dry. That's the biggest bugbear of a goalkeeper. And when you watch it now, your depth perception of through balls, and you watch goalkeepers now, and you can understand if, like in the Euros, you see pitches that have been watered, but they obviously need to be watered over a constant period of time, so you're getting a consistency through the whole half. You're going to chuck a load more on it at half time, but if you just put a load across the top 10 minutes before the game, in this weather, 20 minutes into the game, you're going to have patches that it's dry, and it's dried up. So the through balls come through, and as a goalkeeper, you're thinking, is that going to skid through? Is that going to stop? Is it going to bounce? What's it going to do? It's just consistency. You want the whole thing consistent throughout the whole half. I mean, that's the idealism, but you don't always get that. But yeah, I always used to like it wet. Playing under lights, it's easy on a night time, and you chuck a load of water on it, it stays on it, plays zippy, and it plays well. And as a goalkeeper, the through ball comes through, it's going to zip through to you, and it's perfect. I mean, you talk about like the handling and stuff. It's the gloves and the way you train now. I much preferred a wet, zippy pitch than bone hard, dry, horrible thing that certain managers sometimes like.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? I watched a game in the Euros and a goal that was scored, and because of my knowledge of knowing you and of goalkeepers are coming out, and I watched one. It was late on I can't remember the game. It was late on in the first half. The through ball's come through. It's pitched, and the goalkeeper then hasn't got there. And when I've deliberately rewound it, and the ball did it. You could see the spin of the ball. It stuck.
I thought you were saying, knowing me, that would have been me in no man's land, not reading it through properly.
And it popped up, and it's really interesting that the consistency of a pitch and how it works and what it comes out.
That's the hardest thing, though. Do you not find that yourself? I mean, you'll obviously get managers. Some managers, you've been lucky because you've worked with some of the top managers and the teams that want to play football. All my time at Tottenham and what I've watched from Tottenham teams want to play. So they want a wet, zippy, constant pitch. But you must have other groundsmen that talk to you and go, "We've been told not to water it today." Listen, I've played for managers. Sean Dyche, Sam Allardyce, other managers that I've worked with, were playing better teams than us. We're inferior to them. Manager's gone to the groundsman, he's gone, "Don't water the pitch today. We need this to be ugly." I mean, you must have some of your friends that have been in the same situation as that.
Without doubt. And I guess, you're always going to get horses for courses. You're going to get a team that don't want it wet, don't want it fast.
And it's horrible for good teams that play and pass. It's horrible.
And you see that even probably more today, bearing in mind that other elements of the quality of playing surfaces have gone out of it, certainly in the Premier League, where they are all very much carpet. So the odd bobbly one isn't there anymore. It's down now to pure consistency of grass, and whether it's wet, whether it's dry, whether the grass is long or short. I guess one thing I would say, sometimes it gets in the way. We look at a day like today. You're going to be 27, 30 degrees.
What would you do? How long before would you water? Would you water for 2 hours before? Half an hour before?
So you'd water 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours before to get the moisture into the root zone and into the base.
Yeah.
And then as far as keeping a wet, zippy top, you would be just before warm up, and then just before kickoff. I mean, an old adage of mine, I always got this, was we would always water before the teams come out to warm up. But as you know, goalkeepers come out early. So the goalkeepers would come out 15 minutes before. So we would have stopped watering 15 minutes before the main team come out. And by the end of the warm up, all you would get with players going off the pitch.
You don't count goalkeepers as main team, though. Goalkeepers were, I'm joking, winding you up.
But you'll always get then the players coming off the pitch.
Yeah.
We need more water, more water. And honestly, if I had £1 for every time a player said that going off the pitch after a warm-up, I'd be a very rich man. Now, we would always water, but again, by the time you get through to half time, or halfway through the first half, as you've alluded to, it's too dry. I brought up at a Premier League meeting a good few years ago, back in COVID. We've got no fans in the ground. If it's hot, as I alluded to today, with a day like this, 27, 30 degrees, when the players have a drinks break, can we not put the water up for 3 minutes?
Here's one for you.
A resounding no.
Underground, like the undersoil heating, on undersoil irrigation. Is that possible? Is that doable?
Looked at many years ago with an old cell system at Loftus Road.
On the plastic pitch?
No, but in fact, it was the pitch after that. The pitch after the plastic pitch, they had it's an old cell system. It was new technology then, never took off.
Right.
But I still believe there is potentially mileage in that.
Surprised it's not been looked at.
Well, you do have sub-air systems where you can suck water out and you can blow air through. Now, if you can suspend water in there, but it's the problem with that, Paul, is you'll get it into the sub base, but you don't actually get it to go up onto the leaf, and it's the leaf that needs to be wet. But interesting. You touched on managers, and I guess in your career, what managers out of those were really into their pitches? Because some managers are, and I've worked for a football club where we want to be right on. The pitches are important, absolutely important. And me or one of my team when I was at Tottenham would travel with the team before and during any tour or any competition. Would any of the managers that you have worked with have had that level of input?
Never really paid that much attention, to be fair. The managers, they're a different breed, managers, and everybody now, you look at the way that football is now, everybody's looking for that nth degree, that small percentage of advantage they can get. Players are monitored, sleep, home, diet, training, everything. They've all got their own physios. Everything is monitored. Everybody's looking for that tiny little bit of percentage that will make them better. Specific managers, not off the top of my head, I can't really remember anyone paying that much attention to the pitch. Like I said to you, I've played with managers before where I've played for lesser teams, and they've gone, look, we've got Man United, we've got Chelsea, we've got Arsenal, we've got Liverpool coming today. Leave the grass a bit longer, don't water it, let's make it horrible, turn it into a bit of a bun fight. And that's what you had to do. But I mean, I know, listen, having spoke to you, I know you've worked with managers that they're into how long the grass is. I mean, it's a football field, isn't it? The Premier League, there's a stipulation of how long it
there's
has
a
to be
maximum
or can
height
be?
it can be. Yeah.
It's
It's a minimum and a maximum.
But managers look at that now because that's that little bit of an advantage. And you look at top clubs, like you built the best training ground in the world. Look at Man City's training ground. They've got an exact replica of the stadium pitch in the training ground, as in dimensions, grass length, everything. And that's the managers, because football is so financially well off and the clubs have got so much money, it's at the manager's disposal. They will do everything that they possibly can to get the best result for the team. And if it means them having a replica pitch and the club can afford to do it, they'll do it.
Absolutely. And no reason why they shouldn't. I want to take you back to Tottenham's old training ground at Spurs Lodge, which was quite modest, to say the least. But
Pitches were awful.
Pitches weren't great. Budgets were tight. But I do remember coming back, having been to White Hart Lane in the morning, looking after the stadium pitch. I do remember coming back and parking in the lower car park at Spurs Lodge. And one of my assistant groundsmen came storming back from lunch with his shoulders round his knees.
I know what's coming.
His head was shaking. And he looked at me and all he said to me was, "Your bleep, 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 mate." And I said, "Oh, what's happened?" "Just go and have a look at pitch 1. By which time I walked up the stairs.
Serves him right for leaving the white line marker unattended, doesn't it?
And maybe you'd like to give us a little enlightenment.
Well, I think that tells you enough, doesn't it? The old white line marker, was it, with a wheel on the end?
He'd left it
out. It serves him going for a coffee break at that time of day or going for his lunch too early. Left the equipment out, left the machinery out. You know what happens when they leave machinery out. Never leave your keys in a tractor or a golf buggy, and never leave a white line marker around. I thought it was quite good artwork, actually. It was.
What was it? You described it as was it Prozone?
What was it? What did they used to do? The player tracker. What they did around the pitch, around the There was quite a lot of white lines.
It looked more like Spaghetti Junction when I looked at it.
Yeah. But to be fair, he was going mad. He'd lost his head. He'd done all the pitch, cut the pitch, marked it up. It looked brilliant. And then I'd done what I did. I just took it for a walk here, there, and everywhere. And I remember this day, he frog marched you up the stairs to the pitch. Look what he's done. You just started laughing.
And I was very unprofessional because I shouldn't have laughed. But I'm going to add to this because we do talk about respect. It was a Friday, and it was August, and the pitch wasn't being used for another 4 or 5 days. By which time we had cut it out by the Monday. But yeah, knowing you and knowing the pranks that can happen.
Surprised you didn't mention the one we're having to put the tractor on the M11.
Well, I was going to get to that because Formula One guys can change a tyre in about 1.9 seconds. I think I saw.
Red Bull did that the weekend, didn't they?
At the weekend.
Incredible.
Yeah, it took us 24 hours to take the rim off the back of our TC27 New Holland tractor.
Well, again, she shouldn't have left the keys in it, should she, bless her?
After a certain goalkeeper had taken it for a ride and curbed it. Yes.
Well, is that the one that I took through the hedge and down the embankment to the M11?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, I upset her, didn't I, that day?
You did.
She went for a lunch and she left the keys in the tractor just as we'd finished training. Took me a while to get it going though. I couldn't work it out backwards, forwards.
No.
The pictures, different gear changes on it. Straight through the goalkeeping area. And honestly, I've never told you this to this day. I scared myself. There's great big trees, the big fir bushes, the fern trees at the end. I've gone straight through them thinking, right, I need to get a bit of pace to get through these trees. So I've put the foot down on the tractor, I've given it a bit more, gone straight through the trees. Unbeknown to me, the other side was the embankment to the M11. Got to the top of it.
Could you see the story?
Stop, yeah.
England goalkeeper in lane 1 of the M11.
Well, and the tractor. It took you a while to find it though, didn't it? I never told you where it was.
It did take us a while to find it. Although we did start by looking around the perimeter, knowing full well that you were in the team. If I bring it back to football pitches and playing surfaces, and we talk about gloves and watering, players' footwear. One bear of my frustration over the years, I guess, as a groundsman, is there's lots talked about the modern pitch and the firmness and players slipping, but I've always struggled to really get to engage with boot manufacturers on the designs of studs, cleats, whatever you want to call them, blades, as it was in history. And what boots that players actually wear for a game. Was you one that ever went on a pitch and would play with you, put your feet down and see what it would do or what it wouldn't do?
No, I was old school. I always had studs. I'd always playing studs. I train in moulds, but I'd always have studs. And you're probably asking the wrong person because I just had long studs in the back, medium studs in the front, no matter where I played and what the pitch was like. Even pre-season days like this, if it was rock hard, I still wouldn't wear moulds. I was old school. I'd always wear studs, and then there's no one else to blame. If you wear studs, you don't fall over. It's that simple.
What about players in the dressing room? Without naming anyone, would there be anyone that would always whinge about the pitch? Would there be a player that came off that would the pitch is this, the pitch is that, or into the manager, we've lost today because the pitch is
No, you'd never.
poor.
Only if the pitch was poor. If you hadn't done your job, like if we don't do our job as players, we get criticised, and you leave yourself open for criticism. But like you, as groundsmen, as ground staff as well, if you don't do the job, if the pitch isn't consistent, if it's not wet and it's supposed to be wet, or it doesn't play very well, you know yourself, like we know ourselves when you've not played very well, you go, not had a good day today. And you know yourself if the pitch hasn't played well. And that's when the lads would grumble. But listen, footballers love excuses. We all love excuses. And the first thing you can jump on, if you've lost or you've not played very well, every footballer will look for an excuse.
Sure. And I get that. And to an extent, we'd be the same, as a groundsman, you want perfection. And you can't always get it. I've alluded to this in a previous turf business interview where I looked at the first 6 weeks in the new stadium at Tottenham, and as soon as we played on that pitch, I knew it wasn't right. And I just couldn't wait to get through each game, hoping and praying it hadn't cost an injury or a goal, a bobble or a divot. And I guess that brings me on to one of probably the most difficult things in your career, and one that I know where I was at the time, And I know that it was absolutely not a mistake of yours, but you have to then take the criticism, or you get a portion with blame. And I'm alluding to Croatia in 2008 and Gary Neville's back pass.
The bobble.
The bobble.
I always said if I ever do an autobiography, which I probably won't, but if I ever did, I'll call it the bobble.
The bobble.
The bobble, yeah. Because that affected me so much through the rest of my career. I mean, I was never the same goalkeeper for 18 months, 2 years after that. And there's nothing that I could have done about it. The backlash, the impact that the press had, the criticism that you got. And you're there thinking, well, what would I do differently? I'd probably still, what is it with the coin in golf? Swing and a miss. That's exactly what it is. And I'd probably still do exactly the same thing. But if the ball's not there, you can't hit it. But yeah, the pitches are different. I mean, now I don't know if they still do, but the Deso pitches that they weave the artificial grass through, there's a solid base. You would never, ever get a divot that size in a pitch these days because of the way that the pitches are constructed and the way that the pitches are put together. And actually, looking back in hindsight, it was probably my own divot from where I was taking goal kicks. Because when you left foot, you're planting foot, I could feel myself sinking. So, like you say, with the Deso, with a solid base, you don't get that. You get a little paw print, a little imprint. Whereas that, you were getting proper divots. It was like an old, like a school pitch.
Yeah, we're actually sinking about 3 inches deep.
And you can feel it. You can feel, I mean, no, you don't feel soil now. There's no soil in the pitches as such. They're obviously, you're going to tell me different. There's soil there.
Yeah.
But actually, it was like your garden. Or it was like, it was a good, don't get me wrong, it was a good quality pitch to look at. But actually, it was soft. And you'll tell me differently, but the Deso pitches, the top is like that, so you're not going to get much thing. But that, you felt as though the pitch was that deep. So when your foot was going into it, you could feel the turf move. And we've seen it with penalties before. I think Bex had a penalty, didn't he? I can't remember where that was. And the turf moved on him. So imagine that turf that's moved on him. You've still got that footprint there, that indent. That's what the ball flipped over on me.
And the difference is, at your end, it cost a goal. And at Bex's end, it was just a missed chance, and no one remembers the missed chances.
Yeah, well, that's what the net's there for, to stop you running for the ball.
You talk about that the pitches these days are all reinforced. Well, and we're talking about the fact that that had a big influence on your career, a heel mark, a bobble. But we look at the pitches in the Euros at the moment, and it's quite obvious that some of those pitches aren't of the reinforced type that we talk about in the Premier League.
The England game, with Carl Walker down the right-hand side, wasn't he? I can't remember off the top of my head which game it was, but it was obvious there was a problem with the pitch, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was England-Denmark. Am
I right? Was the roof closed and was the humidity a problem as well, and did that have an effect on the pitch?
And the humidity may be a problem with ball movement, but it wouldn't have been a problem with the firmness of the playing surface.
That wouldn't have affected it, even if the roof was closed. That was had no effect whatsoever.
No, it wouldn't have an effect. But what it would have done from in the perspective of walkers, it wouldn't have had an effect on our soft ears. But the point I want to make there, from a groundsman's perspective, and even from a player, you've left that uncertainty. So Walks has gone down the right wing, he's put his foot down for a cross, it's given way, he's turned his ankle. As it happens, he went down afterwards.
Changed his boots straight after as well, didn't he?
Straight after. And that was where I was alluding with a question on you, whether you ever wore different studs. But I guess from my experience as a goalkeeper, I always wore long studs in the back, long in the middle.
They
and
were either long or even longer there. That was my I'd never wear blades or anything. I mean, it was just like me. I'm a dinosaur, and even back then, that's how I was. I was old school even back then.
Just talking about England and what is poignant at the moment with the Euros on, and you've been in many squads and played in 2 major tournaments. How's the boredom when you're there? Because you're away for potentially 3 or 4 weeks. And I know they set up, as I know this from Spurs and the hotel that Tottenham have, they'll set up as like a games room and stuff like that. But how do you alleviate that boredom? What goes on? I mean, I think you've told me before, or I know this, but you're playing snooker, but what else is there? Games.
No, listen, I mean, it's difficult, and it's always been a thing with English players and playing tournament football. And I think in years gone by, we've been guilty of progressing youngsters through to the full squad too quickly. As in, he's a good player, let him train with a full squad, it'll do him more good. than getting used to playing tournament football, as in under 18s, under 20s, under 21s. But that's changed now. You see the success that we've had at youth level. Players get experience of playing tournament football because it's completely different. You're away for 4 weeks. You're living with 50 to 100 people that you wouldn't necessarily choose to live with. You get your own room, which is your own little bit of space. Like you say, there's the games rooms and different things. Listen, Sven tried it in 2006 and he got a lot of criticism for it. And you can understand why, be the whole WAG situation in Baden-Baden. I mean, we were lifting up the papers every morning or reading the papers, whatever it was, and just wondering who Doris was going to be on the front page of the next day's papers. Somebody else's missus was on the front page of the papers. It backfired on him massively. But when you actually unpack it, you can see what he was doing. You looked at the years gone by. Why haven't England been successful? Why are they not successful at tournament football? Is it that they're bored? Is it that they're away from family, friends, loved ones, etc.? So he thought, in his wisdom at the time, he would hotel 2 miles away from the players, lovely little town, wives, girlfriends, mums, dads, families, keep them close. So the players have got that in touching distance. And on days off, it was nice to drop in and out of if you did it properly. But I mean, it was used and abused to the level where it was front page of the national newspapers every day. And that's the hard thing to do, is the tournament is to fill your own spare time. But now there's that much analysis. They'll have defenders meetings, midfielders meetings, unit meetings. There'll be a spa, there'll be a golf course, listen, it's not a hard thing. Don't ever feel sorry for a footballer. It's not a bad life.
No, I'm sure not. I just remember back from those, I think it was 2004, 2006. I remember before the World Cup, we had a game of snooker, an evening playing snooker, and we would have been, I would say, bang average if we were knocking in 4 or 5 balls.
I come back and I cleaned you up, you mean? Is that
yeah, that's
come
exactly
back
what
from
I'm
the
going
World Cup. Well, that's one good thing from the World Cup. I come back and I was good at snooker. Is that what you say?
Yeah, so Robbo would have breaks of about 18, 21, 27 like me, and then coming back, and I just felt like, I think Len Ganley's a famous referee of the past. All I was doing was walking around the table picking balls out. You're knocking in breaks of 40, 50, 60. Yeah. And I mean, that was
Benfleet
3
never
weeks
seen
away.
Like it, had they?
Riley's at Benfleet. Never had breaks of 60 on the table. But no, joking aside, that was great fun. But I do know as well on what England and what it means. And also you alluded to it there now, and the modern games. And I know from having worked at Tottenham and the different teams staying, obviously in the last Euros that were in England, we had England, Denmark and Italy for the final. And all of what you've just alluded to is obviously very true. Team walks, team meetings and all what goes on. So the game's different now. And social media and I guess the way things are analysed now. And the backroom teams. I think when I first started at Tottenham before, we've talked about I had a team of 1. I've left with a team of 45. And the backroom team in professional football now used to be a team of manager, kit man, masseur, not even a masseur,
More staff than players now. More staff than players.
And that's why they take 2 buses now to every game, because you can't fit them all on one team coach. The days of a team coach now that go into Wembley for a cup final, there's 2, if not more. You talked about this, and it's the last thing I want to finish on, and we talk about players' careers, and we talked about your bubble, but media talk and impact on players, and it's relevant with Harry Kane in the last week, as he's not had a dig back, but he's given his view back on the insights into what's going on with them now. And pundits will be pundits and have to do their bit. But with social media and with the way that everything is out there, what happened maybe in Baden-Baden, you may tell a story of Baden-Baden, but it might be 2 weeks before it makes the news.
Mate, can
but
you
here
imagine
it's
that
2
bubble
minutes
that I had
later.
against Croatia? I would have got absolutely panned if there was social media at that time. Listen, I got absolutely panned as it was. I had newspaper reporters and journalists stood outside my gates, taking my kids to school, people following me. But with social media now, can you imagine the slobber I'd have got then?
Absolutely. And today's media, and you're part of media now, this is your new role in media. I wouldn't say do you see a sense of guilt, because your job is to report on it. And you have an understanding, and that's why ex-professional footballers and sports people do the role. Is there do you have a bit of empathy or of understanding as to what the England team are in now, if you like. Because
yeah, but you can't dress it up, Dazza. You can't sit there and go. Football fans and people who watch football are very knowledgeable. So there's no point in me sitting there as a pundit in the media saying, first 2 games, they were brilliant. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. They did this well, they did that well. I thought Trent Alexander-Arnold in the midfield was great. Phil Foden on the left wing all worked. You can't. And people are just going to say, you don't know what you're talking about. What are you doing? There's criticism, but there's constructive criticism. In the media and in the press, when it goes to a personal level, that's different. But when you're actually analysing the game, I'm paid now as a journalist, as somebody in the media, and you give your opinion. It's not personal criticism. You critique what you see in front of you, but you don't go too far. You don't go over the line. I'm not foolish enough to sit there and think England have played well. I think by speaking now, we're 3 games into the tournament. We don't know how the tournament's going to pan out. I've watched all 3 games and I don't think they've played well. I don't think there's any type of cohesion. The team hasn't clicked. You can see certain things what could be different. The best thing is everyone's an England manager. Everyone's got an opinion. And we'd all pick a different team. We'd all pick a different shape. We'd all pick a different starting 11. We all have opinions on the manager. But actually, what you're paid to do in the media is to give an honest opinion of what you see. And you can't sit there and say, yeah, that's great, love that, think he's brilliant, because that's not what it is, and that's not what happened to me. But when criticism becomes personal and it goes over the line on social media and it involves family, friends, loved ones, it's too much. You sit on the TV, you're on the radio, and you give your honest analysis of what you see, and that's fair enough, because you're paid a lot of money, you're the very, very best in this country at what you do, so you need to produce on a level, and if you don't, people have their opinions.
It's tough life, though. I know you allude to footballers, but they're only human beings.
Of course.
And quite often they don't really have the right to reply. So Harry did speak out.
You don't have the right to reply. You don't, which is an unfortunate thing. Because as soon as you say something, people say, oh, that's hurt him, or that's got to him, or he can't say that. And we've seen it with footballers reacting to certain criticism. And that's one of my bugbears. A football stadium, the arena, the environment, it seems to give a grown adult the right to be able to shout something at you. So I used to laugh because I used to get loads of dogs abuse when I played. Go and pick the ball up for a goal kick.
Any ground in particular?
Well, yeah, several. I'd go and pick the ball up behind the goal, and then you'd hear somebody giving you a load of slaver, and I pick the ball up and you look up and you catch somebody's eye, and they just go, and they'd sit down. But the amount of the abuse that you'd get, they wouldn't give you that if you walked out past them in the street. No. If they walked past you here right now, they'd say, hello, are you okay?
They want an autograph.
Yeah, or something along those lines. But the football stadium, the environment seems to give, or a false sense that it gives the people the right to shout abuse and everything they want at you. I mean, Arsenal's a perfect example. You know, my strong dislike for there because of the abuse that I've suffered there over the years. And I was at home one Sunday having Sunday lunch with mum and dad, with missus and kids, and Arsenal on the telly. I went, I hope they get beat today. And mum went, oh, it's quite nice there. They always look after us, because they always used to put mum and dad in the bit where they wouldn't get any abuse, get out the way. So mum said, oh, it's always quite nice there. They always look after us. I said to her, you want to know what to say about you behind the goal?
Oh dear. So it's quite interesting that you talk about the players and they're unright, if you like, or they're unable to reply where criticism is aimed at them. Groundsmanship is very similar. I know I've been called out. I know back in fact Blackburn Rovers 2002, we had a game.
Not that it ever got to you.
Postponed. Not that it ever got to me. No.
Blackburn Rovers 2002 on the 16th of August at 4 o'clock. So
I can think of one a lot earlier than that, but I care not to mention quite how many years back I go. But I think criticism of pitches and the media's input into that, and social media is very difficult. Groundsmen often will be called out.
Well, you have one game a week. If you can't get a pitch ready, you have one game a week. What's wrong with you?
One game a week and a training session, and then an after training session.
Oh, then all these concerts and things you have to deal with.
All these extras. But no, on a serious note, I guess the point I would say is that we as groundsmen, not just in football but in other sports, it's very easy to be critical of the pitch. And I'm not saying you have been. I'm talking generally in terms of sport and the right to reply and what the media has bought. You know, I can look at cricket and see whether it's a test match or a one-dayer, and maybe a team captain.
Or the T20 in Florida in the rainy season. I know, let's play a World Cup in Florida in the rainy season. That's a good idea, isn't it?
Then you get 1 point each because you don't play. I don't want to go into the politics of the rules of games, but I guess it's very difficult to have your reply, and you've spoken there about footballers.
But you can't have a reply, can you? There's no point in you having a reply because nobody will listen to start with. And if your pitch is not what you want, you know more than anybody it's not what you want. And if somebody points it out, you just have to, yeah, it is what it is. You get a disease on the grass, or it's a different colour, or somebody says on Match of the Day or Sky, pitch is looking a bit yellow today, and you know that the grass has got a disease, or you know that you're trying to deal with something.
But no one knows the full insight.
But nobody knows the insight, and it's easy just for a keyboard warrior to pick up the phone and just go, "Oh, Tottenham's pitch is crap today. Why is the pitch yellow?" And it gets to you and it hurts you, and people don't realise that the only person that it hurts is the person that it involves. Like the stick that I got after the England game, it stuck with me for years, 2-3 years afterwards. To everybody else, it's forgotten about tomorrow. Nobody else cares. Somebody will say something today and won't even remember they've done it tomorrow or the day after at the end of the week. It's done, it's forgotten. But when it's criticism like that, because, listen, as I know, it's your pride and joy, isn't it? Like Adrian there, cutting the lawn behind us. He's done it 3 or 4 times. It's his pride and joy, and he takes great pride in it.
But look, it is very, very relevant. I'm going to finish with a couple of cheesy ones. The best pitch that you've played on in your career, anywhere in the world?
You're going to want me to say White Hart Lane, aren't you?
No, anything but.
Anywhere but White Hart Lane. Anfield, last game of the season. What you want when you look for the Premier League fixtures, you want Anfield, last game of the season, or last 2 games of the season, somewhere at the back end, because you know what it's like. After the season finishes, the day after, you're digging your pitch up. So they cut the pitch like that at Anfield, last couple of days of the season. And it's like a bowling green, literally like a bowling green. It's the shortest, quickest pitch you'll ever play on. It is like turning up to a bowling green and playing football on it. Anfield, last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, best pitch you'll ever get.
And I'm going to give you a nice way out here. Worst pitch.
Yeah, I have to say Croatia, aren't I? Yeah. Oh, listen, we've played in a few.
Or Tottenham 2006.
No, obviously the Eastern European ones are awful. Azerbaijan weren't great. When I played in Azerbaijan, do you remember when the fan jumped on the pitch?
Yes.
And I apprehended him, put him in a headlock till the police got on. That wasn't great. Azerbaijan away in Baku.
Worst pitch,
Yeah,
Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
Do you think pitches in Europe are a long way behind there? I know they're behind.
Eastern Bloc, definitely. Yeah, Eastern Europe, definitely a long way behind. The German league, as we're seeing in the Euros, they're not to the Premier League quality. La Liga, there's not a consistency. Premier League, you get 20 very good pitches. La Liga, you'll have 10, 12. Serie A, the same. Italian pitches are nowhere near as good.
And further afield with pitches, obviously you've done some work in the Far East and seen some other stuff out there. Still not.
The care, attention and budget isn't there.
Okay. Robbo, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you again soon.